that it provides us. Father, just guide us as we have this meeting, and thank you for the new members of this board, and just be with them. Be with each resident in Glynn County and help us to try to strive to meet everybody's needs in this county. Help us to always glorify you and be a shining light to those around us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is the swearing in of Bruce Duncan to the elected position of Washington.
Solemnly swear
and affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Commissioner of the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission
of the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission
in all matters
in all matters
which require
which require
my official action
my official action
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and skill.
and skill.
I do further solemnly swear and affirm
And do further solemnly swear
that I am not the holder
I am not the holder
of any unaccounted for public funds,
of any unaccounted for public funds,
that I am a resident of Glynn County
that I am a resident of Glynn County
for the time required,
for the time required,
that I am otherwise qualified to hold said public office according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and the laws of Georgia,
and the laws of Georgia,
and that I
and that I
will support
will support
and defend
and defend
the local act
the local act
enabling
enabling
the Brunswick
enabling Brunswick,
Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission,
Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission,
as well
as well
as the constitutions
as the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, congratulations. Okay. All right, so you can sign, please. Sign here. That's okay.
Okay, we will now take a break for approximately 10 to 15 minutes to have everyone congratulate Mr. Duncan, and there are some refreshments in the rear.
tell Charlie to do this for the water's coming too.
I didn't know about what you were just getting. All right.
I heard something during the game the other night. He's not as motivated, but he's as accurate and good passers to us.
Okay, meeting will come to order. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to add item number 4 to the discussion agenda, health insurance workshop discussion with Jimmy Junkin.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any comment, questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion is carried. Mr. Mayor? We had a
Yes, sir.
discussion on the health. Okay. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we move discussion item number 1, North Cottages encroachment response, to the executive session.
Session.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? What? Okay. All right. We're there already. So we'll vote, I guess. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. Next order of business is a special recognition for the chairman, Commissioner Browning, and Commissioner Adams, who's not here. So what were you going to do?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a few words on behalf of staff in regards to the folks we want to honor today. Yourself and Vice Chairman Browning, and unfortunately, Commissioner Adams is absent. I had a nice written up statement that I was going to bring in and provide, but I'll just say that certainly on behalf of staff and I would say in behalf of the community, we appreciate all that you and Vice Chairman Browning have done for us this past year. I know there are a lot of things that you guys have spent the extra hours and made the extra effort to help us get across the goal line from here time to time. And certainly we couldn't have achieved nearly as much without the help that you all have provided to us over the course of the past year. And we just want to express our extreme appreciation for the time and effort that you all have put in and the things that you've allowed us to do and helped us do over that course of the last 12 months. So that's my general statement to all three, even though Commissioner Adams is not here today.
Thank you. I want to say to Commissioner Browning that I really enjoyed him being the vice chair and helping me in all the ways that he's helped me this last year. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say I have one minor complaint, and I'm going to voice that last, but I've enjoyed being here for 2 years. This is a great body, the commission, Jimmy, his staff. This whole JWSC operation is very important to the health and welfare and the growth of Glynn County, and I think y'all all know that. So it's a very serious thing that we deal with here every time we meet, and I know it's going to be in good hands. Not that it was in good hands with me, but I know it's going to continue to be in good hands, and I'm going to miss it. I think y'all know I get kind of serious sometimes, you know, about my beliefs and on some of these issues, but I had the opportunity to be here, and I'm grateful for that. You know, I just wish I could, I really wish I could be here a little longer. And I would have stayed if I hadn't become chairman of the Glynn County Board of Commissioners, but I've got a lot to do over there. But I want to thank you all. I want to thank every one of you. You know, you stepped up to the plate, whether you went to the grand jury or went to the public and got yourselves on here. Very few people will do that. My hat's off to you. I understand what it means to serve the public. Spend your time, doing the best you can, and sometimes take a big beating part. We don't have all the answers. People expect us to have all the answers, but the key to it is you just keep looking for them. As long as you don't give up, we get there. But my only complaint after saying thank you all is, Jimmy, I have not seen that check for serving on here. 2 years. And just, y'all keep searching for the answers, and I'm gonna keep looking for the check. But I've enjoyed it. The pay was great. It was just what I expected, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
It was the best I could do under the circumstance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the election of officers. As everyone knows, the chairman serves for 1 year and is reelected, or correction, not reelected, but is again elected, or a new chairman is elected each year. That's enough to say. So at this point in time, I will open the to the commission the nomination for chairman for 2019. What?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to offer a nomination, and I'd like to place the name of Ben Turnipseed as chair for this year.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none and seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of Chairman, or Commissioner Turnipseed being elected the chair, please raise your right hand. Okay. You're now the chair. I will let you do the election for the vice chair.
Next item is the election for the vice chairman. Do I have any nominations for vice chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I have a nomination to offer. I'd like to offer the name of Commissioner Steve Copeland as our vice chair.
Any other nominations? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I think you just call for a vote now. I think you need to
All in
say-
favor? Raise your right hand. Steve Copeland is our new vice chairman. Congratulations. The next item is for the minutes from the December 20th, 2018 regular meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from December 20, 2018 regular meeting.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Everybody in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance as public infrastructure Silver Oaks subdivision.
All right.
Todd Clyde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the benefit of the folks here and everything, I'll read a little bit of background on this. This is a dedication of easement infrastructure. Silver Oaks is a 13-lot, single-family development located in mid-north St. Simons Island with the entry lot located off of South Harrington Road, approximately 2,100 feet east of the intersection of South Harrington Road and Frederica Road. Property was developed by Altamaha Preserve LLC under Mr. Tommy Stewart. With these dedications, there's an easement and also infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure. And we take these easements through different milestones, we call them, or these dedications through different milestones. And they have satisfied, and they also go through JWC legal advisory, make sure everything's clean and good on there as well. That's been through that. We have all the documents together. Try to hew it down to what's of primary interest for the board to view during the commission meeting. But certainly if there's anything else you would like to see, like the actual legal description or anything like that, we certainly have that documentation on file. Per the commentary from, or the request from last dedication we did include in your copies the water and sewer as-bills or record drawings. So you can see the actual drawing or map of the infrastructure that staff is bringing before you today. So those are included in the packet. I'll be happy to answer any questions on there. You'll see the dedication form, which is completed, which has the engineer of record provides a fair market value in there that's utilized on our end. And then the actual easement plat itself, which spells out where the easement is. Why is this important? It's important now. It's a new construction, new development, new subdivision. It's important for the folks to come after us so that the ownership and accessibility issues are satisfied and finalized now. No questions in the future. That's why we do this. Happy to answer any questions.
I would add there's usually questions on the fair market value. The water line in this case is 8 inch, the sewer line is 3 inch, so that's why there's a huge gap in the cost of the water and sewer infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions? I hear a motion.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion. I make a motion that Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission accept the on-site water system and on-site sewer system along with the associated easements within Silver Oaks development as a public infrastructure for ownership, operation, and maintenance.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant oxygen supply improvements. Andrew Burrs.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, I've got a decent amount of background information on this project because if you've read through the packet, there is some changes requested at the end. So I'm gonna go through some background, try to explain how we got where we got. Originally, when we did this project, the goal of this project was to improve the safety for the staff, decrease our oxygen loss possibilities, and to improve our monitoring capabilities for tighter operational control of the Academy Creek oxygen supply system. We got an estimate from one of the suppliers to do some manifold work, and the estimate came in just under $300,000. We looked at some of the piping costs, and we figured we weren't gonna place all of it, but we figured we'd get probably double that in there, so $600,000 and $50,000 for engineering. Well, contracted with Hussey Gay Bell for engineering. The original scope was, again, to replace the manifold systems, refurbish the LELs. LELs, we're going to use that term a lot, are lower explosive limit analyzers. Basically, they measure the concentration of methane in the tank to determine whether an explosive environment exists. If an explosive environment exists, they signal to purge the system so that we don't have a runaway reaction that if a spark occurs, it blows the plant up, and to make SCADA improvements. These upgrades were always planned to be done again in 2 separate contracts, one by the gas supplier to supply the manifold systems, and then a general contractor to perform the civil and mechanical work needed outside of the actual oxygen supply process. Through the process of talking with Hussey Gay Bell, it was determined it would probably make more sense to have Matheson, who's our gas supplier, do the work on the LELs as well, due to the specific nature of the project versus the relative experience of most of the general contractors in this area due to the lack of use of this technology in the immediate area. Upon further investigation of the system by Hussey Gay Bell and staff on-site meetings, we decided that we needed to replace the blower that was part of the system. The blower was in bad shape, but is not deemed to be refurbishable, and it is currently located at the end of AB3 on the south, AB1 on the south end of the plant, which is right by the headworks, where we have some gas release situations down there that have caused significant corrosion. So we had opted in this proposal to relocate that to behind AB2 in the center of the plant, away from the corrosive gases, so that the new blower would not be corroded like the old one did in a very short period of time. So it would be to purchase a new blower and install a new panel and a pad for that to occur. That would also operate the LEL system a little more effectively, because if AB3 has a problem currently, the where it's located, it has to pump through ABs 1 and 2 before it can purge AB3. So this would put it in the center of the plant, which would expedite the purging if a situation occurred. The cost to buy the new blower and relocate that blower and put the new panel up were not included in the original estimate. Back in November, I think some of you attended. I know we passed out the documentation afterwards. A gentleman from Cumming, Georgia, that has worked on the design of the original UNOX system when Union Carbide came down and did some training and walked around the plant at that time. I know he walked around with myself and Mr. Riles, and I believe he walked around with a couple of the commissioners as well. And he mentioned that he did not think that the piping was of significant concern to him at this time, but he was very concerned about the lack of working safety equipment and the corrosion on the valves at the manifold system. So given his expertise, we moved forward. We advertised for bids in October with an expected bid opening of December 7th. After some extra consideration of whether to lease or purchase the tanks, a new oxygen tank, we delayed the bid until January 3rd with the decision to lease a second tank. 2 bids were received for this work, with the lowest bidder being Allen and Graham Inc. of Brunswick, with an initial bid of $834,547. After we received the bids, we took the piping work out on the advice of Mr. Gay, and also changed the way we were doing some of the SCADA improvements to reduce that cost from running fiber optics throughout the plant to run the SCADA to doing a wireless radio setup. That has been successful with other locations, not here, but in other plants, and that reduced the overall bid by Allen and Graham by $276,204. Finalizing their bid price at $557,843. The secondary bidder, we also removed the piping costs from his project, and he was still substantially higher than the original bidder, so we did not contact him for a new price because he was still $200,000 higher. We requested quotes from Matheson for the supply of 2 stainless steel oxygen manifold systems, one for the tank on the north and south ends, the installation of a new LEL system on AB1 because it does not have one, and then the refurbishment of the ones on AB2 and 3. And they will also be doing programming work on the SCADA improvements for us to monitor the system, operate the actuated valves, and also help with ordering. It'll be automatically ordered and once the tank hits a certain level, so that we can keep our supplies up in the right manner. The time of the estimate, we did not include the SCADA improvements as part of the Matheson scope, but again, given that the specific nature with the conversations with Hussey Gay Bell, we decided it made more sense to leave the SCADA improvements with them. Total cost of the improvements from Matheson is $384,170. We elected to refurbish the 2 existing LELs rather than install new ones on ABs 2 and 3, which avoided the additional expense of $45,650. So the 2 contracts are tabulated there for a total combined price of $942 and $13. The remaining project budget after what has been paid for engineering to this point is $609,300, and we expect at least one more invoice from Hussey Gay Bell for bidding and bid review work. Should not be a substantial charge, but that will come in. We're requesting a budget adjustment in the amount of $390,000 to cover the change in the scope of the work and the material price increases. I listed a table there of where these price increases came to. If you add up the things in the tab, they don't add up exactly to that. I just rounded those numbers off. Blower purchase and installations, about $125,000. Changes in the Matheson scope to include the additional LEL work and SCADA improvements is $100,000. New pads for the blower and tank. The tank pad was not able to meet current wind load ratings for tanks, so we had to improve that. That's about $30,000. And then you got 3 items down there with asterisks beside them. There's a SCADA integration allowance for MR Systems, who is going to be doing the integration work on this. I spoke with MR Systems about this, and so is David Grantham, our SCADA tech, and they just wanted to put an allowance in there on the off chance there's something Matheson needs them to do. That money is not anticipated to have to be spent, but that's just an allowance that's in there. The Allen and Graham contingency was 10% of the bid price. That is in the bid documents, and that's about $50,000. And then because we're going to get some additional bills from Hussey Gabel, and because I don't have to come back to you to ask for more money, I've allotted 10% of the Matheson contract for contingency there, which is about $378,000 of that $390,000. The rest of it was just slight changes in bid prices from what we expected on the valves and those things. So the requested $390,000 budget adjustment would be funded through the R&R reserve. Current uncommitted funds total $3,043,669. So if we take the $390,000 out, that leaves an uncommitted fund balance in the R&R reserve of $2,653,669. So we recommend awarding this contract because of the lack of safety equipment presently working at the plant. Then there will be two, if awarded, there will be two separate contracts and a budget adjustment needed to do this project. Therefore, there are three suggested motions. Also of note, on John's financial project report, the budget will change just for accounting purposes if this is approved. On Todd's project report that you'll see today, if this is approved as previously requested, the commission didn't want to just keep updating budgets on that because then we're always going to be under budget. So we will leave the original budget estimate on there for comparison of original estimate versus final outcome on that project report, because that's not an accounting document. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Mr. Burrows, how long do you anticipate once the Matheson people get on site with the tank? What's the term of that scope? How long do you think?
Well, I'll answer that with somewhat of a two-part answer. The contract for Allen and Graham is 120 days, and they have to be here slightly before Matheson to remove the existing tank that is ours and pour a slab for the new tank. The Matheson tank can be here early to mid-March, so ideally we would get this project started no later than mid-February to make sure we had time to get that done. And we expect both of the contractors to be done around the same time, so we're hoping late spring, early summer on this at the latest.
And the reason I asked, I was just looking at the thing, we're paying 25% at signing and then 50% upon shipment.
Right.
And then from 30 days from the shipment date, we have to pay the full amount. And if that's before the tank and the work is done, we would have paid the full amount before any work is actually completed. I didn't know if that was a 2-week project, in which case it's a moot point, or if it was a...
It may be around that 30 days once they get here, because what they're going to do is set the tank, and then their staff can be here before that point, working on the LELs and stuff, because that doesn't require the tank to get here. The main holdup on their part of the end is just getting a tank here. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Well, if this gets approved, we're going to have a very detailed pre-con, because we've got 3 contractors working on this with a SCADA integrator, a general contractor, and Matheson as a supplier. So we will go through that in great detail as part of the pre-con.
Do we typically hold 10% or something?
Yes, we hold retainage, 5% retainage.
And the operating staff out there is very familiar with the work that's going to be done, and they
Yeah.
understand what we need to do as far as shutting down a basin and.
Right. Me and Mr. Turnipseed talked about this briefly before. This is going to be a great staging project for our staff. You're going to have to empty a tank, remove a tank, and then change basins around to make the actual improvements to the safety systems and the valving on the tanks. So the staff is going to get real reacclimated to shutting down basins and opening them back up and changing valving around. So it'll be, for our new operators, it'll be a great training opportunity to get this project done, because a lot of them haven't done a lot of this work before. But we're going to have to do the work on AB1 short term first, because that's currently out of service, so that it can be put back in service while we take some of the other ones down to do the work. So we're going to have to coordinate that again with staff as part of the project. In both the bid documents and on the actual drawings, it says that the contractor is required to give us 72 hours notice of any needed shutdown of any part of the plant. We are going to create a form where they provide a written request to shut down parts of the plant, so that we don't get 30 days added on at the end because they decided to call us on a Thursday and want to do work on a Friday, because we can't shut down parts of the plant in overnight. It just, you can't do it. It would mess the plant up completely. So we're gonna have to document that as well, because, I mean, contractors get behind and they decide all of a sudden they want to, this work's gotta be done tomorrow. We can't do that at the wastewater plant, because we're gonna have to open and close basins and allow the biomass have time to get used to the new environment.
Is project inspection gonna be done by Hussey and Bell?
We have talked to them about that. We don't expect full-time observation of this project by any stretch. We haven't actually got a price from them on doing the observation. There will be naturally staff members at the plant at all times, so there will be eyes on them there. Our inspectors will be involved. I will be involved as part of this, and we will contract Hussey Bell about doing probably some weekly stop-bys just to see what's going on and make sure if there's anything we're not catching. So again, that'll come out of that $40,000 contingency for that line item.
None of the oxygen piping will be replaced now?
None of the oxygen piping will be replaced. We will be painting some of the old piping that is starting to corrode on the exterior. Talking with Mr. Gay, he suspects that most of the damage to the pipe that is there is just surface damage on the outside, and that if we repainted that pipe, it would probably hold up for a considerable period of time.
And the blower, where does the blower tie into the system?
The blower ties into the system because if you get, if the LEL goes off and you have an explosive environment, the blower operates as a purge system. It turns on and blows additional oxygen into the system to decrease the methane content below the explosive limit. So it is basically, we can get a 100 horsepower blower can get air there faster than a pressurized oxygen tank can.
And so the blower will be in the center of the plant?
Directly behind AB2, yes, sir. Currently, there, if you are at the plant, if you're walking around, there's an elevated catwalk that's between AB2 and the clarifiers. It will be located between AB2 and that catwalk.
And so the oxygen pipe will be cut in
Yes.
order to tie the blower in?
That's correct.
And you'll add a T and
That's correct. And a
some
valve,
valving.
some valving, yes, sir. There'll be actuated valves that when this alarm goes off, the valve opens up, the blower turns on, and it just starts blowing, not oxygen, blowing air through it at that point to purge the system.
does, now that you've removed the oxygen piping from the proposal, from the bid,
Yes, sir.
the pipe supports that hold that piping now, will any work be done to those pipe supports?
Currently, there's no work planned to the pipe supports. Me and Mr. Turnipseed spoke about that earlier, and that may be something we need to take a look at as well. It may be difficult currently to work on the pipe supports if we have to actually break the flanges off at the piping to do that in some situations, because as you know, once you break the original flange and the gasket that was in there, it never quite seals up as tight again. So we're somewhat debating whether the pipe supports can be replaced as they are, or if we're gonna have to remove portions of the piping. It may make more sense not to touch it to avoid having the additional chance of loss of oxygen through a leaky gasket that doesn't seal the same way.
Well, yes, it may not be necessary to remove the pipe support.
Right,
If you
right.
can just replace one beside it.
Yes, absolutely. So we will have to look at that, yes, sir.
It seems to me, if I remember correctly, the LEL, some of the electrical for the LELs is routed down on the side of those pipe supports.
That's correct.
And that's in pretty bad shape. That,
The races that those run through, yes, sir.
yeah. Is there any allowance in this bid for that work?
Currently, there's no allowance in this bid for that, but with the contingency amount, if assuming we don't have to use all that money, we may be able to do a lot of that work with that contingency amount. I mean, especially if we provided the races and they just had to do the labor to install them. Because the races aren't going to be super expensive to purchase.
Are they gonna when they replace that, are they gonna replace, I mean, they're gonna replace the electrical? Or is that gonna be reused?
Some of the electrical will have to be replaced because of condition, but not all of it may have to be replaced. There's allowance in the, if you look at the bid document down there on, I think it's line item 23, the miscellaneous items, including support work for SCADA, instrumentation, electrical work, et cetera, there is money in there to rerun all that wire if necessary.
If necessary?
If necessary.
Have
Yes,
you
sir.
looked inside the conduit? I don't know if that wire's,
We have not looked into the conduit at this point, but if they open it up And when they're disconnecting and we look at it, if it's in bad shape, there is money in there to replace the electrical.
And definitely the unistruts that hold it in place
Yes.
will have to be
Replace that.
replaced.
Yes. So there is money in there for that. Once we changed the SCADA to the wireless, they did take some money out of line item 23 that was in there for conduit and labor for pulling the fiber. So that number did decrease slightly, but the vast majority of it did stay in there for all that electrical work. And and according to the contractor, that's where a lot of his labor is tied up as well.
So just one overarching question. Given the scoping effort and the due diligence performed to this point, would you suggest your confidence level is high sufficiently to support this budget adjustment?
Yes, sir. I do think this will be more than sufficient. Again, there's money in a lot of these items. I say a lot. There's some contingency items and then line item 23 as well that has some quote-unquote additional worst-case scenario type numbers in there. So I'm confident that that budget adjustment will be plenty to finish the project.
Thank you.
Well, this is the heart of the plant, so we
It is.
definitely need to get it done, so.
Well, and, the safety equipment is definitely something that was identified very early on that need to be corrected. And we are fortunate to date that we haven't had a problem out there, given the fact that we have no working safety equipment at that plant.
Are they gonna be able to isolate the way it's set up now? When they cut that oxygen pipe and put the T in, can they isolate the train that needs to be operating?
Yes, sir. Everything can be fed from both directions, and there's several valves that would have to be valved off, but yes, it can be isolated to only feed each individual basin from either tank. So if you wanted to feed from the north end to the south end, it still runs in the main, but the drop legs and stuff can be valved off so that it doesn't go off, so they can tie into one of those drop legs and put a T in there.
There's no other questions, can I hear a motion?
Again, if this is to be approved, there are three motions. There's no particular order they necessarily have to go in, but there would be three motions.
So we need all three.
Real quick, Mr. Burrs, will you, I'm not finding the gap here between the 1,040,000. I mean, I know that set of some allowances, but just following along through them, I haven't picked them out yet. What is the total of allowances that get you from the sum of the two independent motions to the 1040? What are those line items?
Well, if you look up at the middle of the page, the 378 is the vast majority of that amount. Those are rounded numbers. I didn't add them up entirely. This says blower purchase and changes in Matheson scope. So that's where all that information comes in. Of those numbers, the bottom three in that table have asterisks beside them. Those are actually contingency numbers that are built into that budget. And the other 12,000 or so rounded comes from the valves coming in slightly higher than we expected and the mobe coming in a little higher than we expected, things like that. So the vast majority of it is in the increased price in the stainless for the manifold systems and for the blower. That's the vast majority of the increase of the budget.
I think what he's saying, he's trying to come up with $1,040,000, but you have a.
Oh, right. Oh, my
statement.
apologies. Yes, the $1,040,000, the original budget was $650,000 as part of this. That was the original project estimate that was budgeted and that's already committed in the R&R reserve. So the 390 total on the 650 goes to $1,040,000. There's 609,000 left in there, so we just paid 41,000 to Hussey Gay Bell for design to this point.
That's part of this, I guess.
I think we need to have three motions made then,
Yes, sir.
and act on each one separately. You hear a motion?
I can make a motion. I move that approval be granted to award a contract to Allen Graham, Inc. in the amount of $557,843 for rehabilitation of the oxygen treatment system at the Academy Creek Water Pollution Control Facility.
I'll second.
All in favor? indicate by raising your right hand. Pass 7-0. Can I hear a motion for the second?
I move that approval be granted to award a contract to Matheson Tri-Gas, Inc. in the amount of $384,170 for rehabilitation of the oxygen treatment system of the Academy Creek Water Pollution Control Facility.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
I move that approval be granted to increase the Academy Creek Oxygen Supply Safety Upgrades Project budget by $390,000 from uncommitted funds in the R&R Reserve to a total updated project budget of $1,040,000.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Burris.
Commissioner Copeland, for getting real repetitive with that.
We'll move on to the discussion portion of the agenda. The first item is going to be the BGJWSC 2018 achievements. Jimmy Jenkins.
Thank you.
Well, Commissioners, I wanted to go through and here at the beginning of the new year, kind of highlight many of the achievements that the staff and all their efforts have accomplished with your help. We're going to go through, I hope, fairly briefly, fairly quickly, just an overview of the highlights of the things that we see that have gotten done. And I'll provide a digital copy of this at a later point to each of you. The big things I wanted to start out with are the things that were visible to the community. Maybe the chief thing amongst those issues is the fact that we were able to open up capacity to the North Mainland during the calendar 2018. What were the benefits? The initial benefits are that we've been able to achieve grad certification, or at least qualifications for grad certification of our Trade Winds Industrial Park. We've also been able to open up development and building new homes in the North Mainland area as a result. Other big improvement, now we'll be seeing greater improvements on that and capacity thereof as we finish phases 2 and 3 of the SPLOST project for the North Mainland sewer improvements. The capital improvements fee basis was modified this year, which allowed us to become more marketable in terms of what we want to do for businesses. It allowed us to, certainly we can look to the canal crossing work and see what was accomplished there as a result of lower fees and a new basis for the capital improvement fees as much development's occurred since then. Greater focus on capital rehab is also an achievement that we made as a result of the considerations for the capital improvement fees and understanding what its impact would do on what we could do. At the point where I got here, we spent a lot of time worrying about what the master plan said we needed to do about expansion. Big dollars, $260 million over a 20-year period to get all those things done. As a result of the redressing of the basis for capital improvement fees, one of the things we've done is taken a tighter focus of what we need to do and have essentially eliminated that $260 million from I guess the burden of the utility, and we're focused more on the $120 million or so, or $140 million that we have remaining that needs to be spent according to the master plan over the next 20 years. That number is not an exact number, and it could shift some to and from, but certainly we've got a better focus on a more achievable outcome for the utility. Academy Creek wastewater treatment plant has been assessed, and we have the things we need to be doing out there to keep that plant in great operational condition. We'll be the initial loan for that work has already been applied for through GFA. So we're working through that as I speak to get the loan finalized and get the funds to go out and do the rehab out there. So we think that was a good accomplishment for 2018. St. Simon's I&I analysis, inflow and infiltration analysis of water getting into our system from extraneous sources. We made a lot of headway there in terms of getting the flow monitoring done, and now we've created the RFP to do actual smoke testing and dye testing, which is another step in defining where those issues are coming from. And essentially, as we get this process completed for St. Simon's Island, it'll give us an understanding of where all the needs are, where we need to invest our monies in the sewer collection system for rehab needs. Of course, when you have help, when you have a means to set priorities on your assets, you're able to take limited funds and put them in the right place at the right time. Other issues that went on in 2018 is we became more geared towards community coordination collaboration. Disaster response and preparation. I know over the last 3 falls we've had storms that either directly impacted our community or nearly impacted our community in a very serious way. The result of those events have been that we have worked with our other first responders in the community through the Emergency Operations Center through those events. We figured out what the needs were in the community. We figured out what our response needed to be, and we've done the things to prepare, and we have a better emergency response plan now as a result of that. In fact, Mr. Sellers rolled it out, a formal plan for us, which we took out and utilized to get ourselves ready for Hurricane Irma before it came through this past fall. Fortunately, it didn't hit us the way we wanted, and we were able to scale back, way back, and actually didn't have to do a lot of the things we anticipated we'd be doing. Future SPLOST projects planning, another area where we're consolidating, working with our community as we've started to work with the county and the city to look at what the SPLOST project or possibilities will be for their areas during the next SPLOST go-round. So we've started the process of coordinating on those things to make sure that whatever the city and the county does, our projects that might overlap or are under consideration, that we're preparing to be able to work with them on those projects. Commercial and industrial project review process. One of the areas that we mapped out, we'll talk about in a minute, in our strategic business plan is to map out our business review plan of these developments. And we're working closer, and we've already initiated meetings with county planning folks to be able to make sure that the steps that we have, the processes that we have in place are more streamlined, more effective and efficient to make us more business friendly in the community, to make things happen at a better rate than maybe they've been perceived in the past. Additional community coordination collaboration, local maintenance and improvement grant project planning, the LMIGs. Again, that ties somewhat back to the SPLOST projects, and it's just a series of projects for paving that typically paving grant that the county does every year. We're working with the public works folks at the county on that to, again, make sure that if there's new paving going on, if we've got assets or project needs in those areas, we're ready to go and have things done so that we don't have to dig up or repave twice. Brunswick area transportation study and project planning, again, another area where we want to make sure the projects they identify, if they overlap with things we need to do, we're ready to go. Brunswick-Glynn County Development Authority. This is a big one, and that gets back to the discussions about trade winds along with various other industrial opportunities that have come up in our community. And we've become very close. We've worked very closely with the folks at the EDA to make sure that we understood what their needs were to market the properties they have, but also we work with them very closely to try to develop opportunities and make it more feasible for folks interested in properties here in our community to get the water and sewer resources they need for future development. Field operations improvements that we've seen. One of the key things we've done is we've identified SCADA system changes that should provide for a more cost-effective approach to monitoring our remote assets, and we're monitoring our plant assets using technologies that are more open architecture. We've basically converted from a product that's very black box in nature, very proprietary in terms of the programming and whatnot, moving to open architecture programming and to off-the-shelf components to operate SCADA. That makes us more resilient, and we can work on our own stuff, and we can do it at a lower cost because components are cheaper. We'll be able to do our own programming and that kind of thing as we move forward and transition all our field assets to the new SCADA system that we've identified. It's a product called VT SCADA, by the way. Energy optimization and maintenance reliability changes. One of the things that we've done over the course of the last year is go through and begin the process of doing assessments and audits to systematically go in and make changes where we've got problems in our pump stations. I'm talking mostly sewer pump stations now, to analyze whether we've got the right applications in, whether we've got the right maintenance done, what are the technologies we can add to those stations to make them more efficient and effective. And we've identified those things, but it is a slow process to go through, and we made some changes in some stations, but it's an ongoing systematic process. But the fact that the troops have identified those opportunities and have commenced to make those changes is a feather in all our hats here. Energy and maintenance optimization, continued pump station recirculation, rehab efforts. That's one of the things we're talking about at the pump stations, where we have flows recirculating back into the pump stations, causing us to repump them over and over and over again, causing us energy and lower efficiency and reduced capacity at those stations. Pump deragging. We have stations, a number of stations that capture rags and other debris that cause the pumps to clog up and foul and be less efficient. Well, we've got systems and technologies now that will eliminate that on an ongoing basis without us having to send out people on overtime or during emergencies to respond and fix pumps that have clogged up. Operating set points in the systems that allow the pumps to run longer and smoother. Those are one of the things that we're looking at all our stations to become more effective and efficient. Variable frequency drives and soft start technology are being applied. Where they haven't already been applied, we're looking at other opportunities to apply them. Again, this makes us more effective and efficient and reduces our energy costs, but it also reduces our maintenance costs because it decreases the number of starts and stops on those pumps. And certainly as the pumps wear, they're less efficient. Misapplication diagnosis I mentioned before. Certainly there's a lot of changes out there in the field where things have occurred that the head pressure we're pushing against are different. The loadings are different. In some cases, just a lack of records on what we're doing with our pumps. Maybe we've changed out impellers. Nobody took something off the shelf because it was convenient. They didn't know what they needed. Maybe they changed out a pump altogether because they had one in another station that was close enough. Maybe it wasn't exactly the one we needed in there. But there's not enough records right at this point. So one of the things we're doing is going in and trying to audit those kind of conditions, pulling pumps, checking records, doing the calculations, and trying to make sure that where we have misapplications, we're getting back to where we should be. More field operations improvements that we've seen. One of the things we've done in hiring our new deputy director, we made some significant changes in his responsibilities, though he's still very flexible and helps us out in a lot of areas. His core focus is to be over operations, field operations, and his extra attention and time spent out in the field with the troops has led to a lot of better understanding of many of the issues that we face on a daily basis that are giving us problems, and allowed us to focus our attention where we needed to and to commence to make changes in those areas. And I think we've only scratched the surface on the things that Deputy Director Burroughs has located and identified. But a lot of things out there, a lot of opportunities. It takes a while to get through all of them and get it done. One of the other field operation improvements I believe we made is moving the responsibilities for inventory control and management to our Director of Procurement, Ms. Pam Crosby. Certainly, we had multiple locations where staff at each location were doing the best they could to manage inventory and to keep inventory up for what they needed. But in cases that we had, oftentimes a lot of the things that we need to do from a process standpoint aren't always identified and followed as strictly as we need to. Certainly, there's some best management practices within inventory control that we want to make sure that we're all as a team following, and ultimately our goal is to have all of our inventories centralized or consolidated under Ms. Crosby. Strategic asset management program development. We've had asset management software here for a long time, or computer maintenance management software in place. I think the bigger thing that we've got going now is that Deputy Director Burroughs has gone through and started the process of doing a risk-based analysis of all of our assets. It's very long. We've got probably just under 100,000 pieces out there in our water and sewer systems. It's going to take a while, but basically what we're doing is walking through the risk of failure versus the consequence of failure for all of our assets. It's a long process, but as we go through that, as we figure out where all our pieces are in terms of those conditions, we'll be able to set priorities on where we need to focus and where we need to do additional maintenance or where we need to invest capital. So that's one of the areas that we've, I think, provided more structure and more formal improvement, and I think that's an improvement for 2018. The initial strategic business plan was for our joint water and sewer utility, was written and completed during 2018. I think the document that we've got now takes our mission for the utility and looks at objectives that will help make us better at providing the water we should, the quality of water we should, take the wastewater collect the wastewater we need to collect and treat it and discharge it according to all the regulatory requirements that we're facing. Essentially, the strategic business plan is going to be our utilities' key to future success in my mind. So with that said, we've already, and one of the things that, as we were developing the initiatives, I think when we did the strategic business plan presentation here a couple of months ago, one of the things I tried to stress was that with the 20 initiatives for calendar 2019, a lot of them look like, wow, you know, we ought to already be doing that. Well, that's true, but I tried to make the point at that time that we're still, in some regards, a very young utility relatively. A lot of the larger, older utilities tend to have a lot of the basic programs already built and in place. We, on the other hand, have identified them. We're trying to get all these basic things done while we do more progressive things in the overall list of initiatives. Certainly to that point, we've already commenced work long before the strategic business initiative was completed to address a lot of those issues. And so a lot of progress was made in 2018 on 2019 initiatives, even before we got to 2019. So that's an improvement. And to that end, I'll go through and hit a few of those real quick to make sure you know what's been done. Core values, which direct our organizational culture. You know, what are our expectations? Where do we, how do we expect our staff to perform, conduct themselves? How do we expect the utility as a whole to deal with our customers and to our internal customers and external customers as well? But having those core values formally stated, formally adopted, and then generating expectations as a result of those core values is a key thing. At this point, we're actually incorporating them into our performance appraisals so that people know we're serious about these things. The next area that we've already been working on is map new development review processes. I mentioned that, and the staff is already going through the process of getting everything mapped out and collecting data to understand where we're at on these processes, where we can make changes, and in fact, make changes in coordination with the county on review process to make sure that we're aligned with what they're trying to get done to be more business friendly. Formalized budget monitoring. We developed, with the help of our finance folks, we've developed some key tools to make us better able to look at what's going on with our individual division budgets, be able to look at them frequently and have more formal reviews with each of our division managers to make sure that we don't let something sneak up on us and bite us before we've realized what was going on. We're able to address things as they occur more quickly because we're identifying them more quickly as a matter of formal reviews. Weekly work planning. One of the things that's going on out there now is we've, again, with the Deputy Director Burris's help, he's instituted weekly work planning. One of the things that we hadn't had in the past. People typically work through on a daily basis, doing almost reactive planning to see what was going on there. But now we're trying to work through and do the additional planning to understand what we want to do in the coming week, which means we're better prepared with materials, other permits, things that we have to do, so we don't ever show up at a job and realize, oh no, we don't have what we need, or we need to be doing something else to be able to do the work. Work order material job box picks will be coming. We're working towards that. The first steps of that is to get our inventories audited so that we can then move forward with taking the work orders and doing job box picks so that operations folks merely come by and pick up a box along with a work order and go out. And Ms. Crosby's working through to get that underway for our staff. So we've got that process started. Early efforts, let's see, smoke testing and dye testing, and we talked about the flow monitoring over on St. Simon Islands will all build towards us being able to complete a sewer system, collection system assessment report for St. Simon Island. This is a report that will allow us to put all of our assets in priority of what they need done. But each of these tasks, not only the smoke testing and dye testing, that was one initiative that we took on for 2019, but also the final assessment report, since that's a key element of it. Both of those are somewhat underway and working towards their ultimate completion date, completions in 2019. Payment assistance program. One of the things that's been on the table for some time is to basically help some of the more economically challenged customers we've got and try to provide payment assistance through our Roundup program. The big issue that we faced was contracting someone to oversee that process. The contract's done. We've executed, passed it here now. Pam, we're waiting on CCGA to complete to execute their copy. With all these things, with all the other initiatives we've got, we're increasing expectations. And as we go, one of the other things we're doing for, you know when you make changes and you increase expectations for staff at every level, human nature is to be defensive over change, not to like it, not to be accepting of change. So what we've done, I think I mentioned in the previous meeting that we've talked to BB&T about their Leadership Institute program, and the process that they want to go through with us is to look at senior management, talk to our mid-level supervisors, and then do surveys of all of our employees. With that, they'll have an understanding of where we're at as individuals at the various levels and understand what challenges we have to get people to be on board and accepting of the changes that we have in front of us. With that, they'll give us specific recommendations that'll help us achieve those changes with our staff and our personnel. Fiscal management changes were made during the year that I feel like are going to come back and provide great benefit to us. One of the big things that occurred during 2018 was the fact that we reduced delinquent payments over 60 days. From January, beginning of January, had $3.048 million in 60-day plus delinquent payments. in December of this year, we've got it down to 1.719 million in delinquent over 60-day payments. People have either come forward since we reinstituted shutoffs. Some cases we've gone out and for the bigger customers, talked to them directly, but we've either gotten people to pay off their debt, we've got people under new payment plans to help them get it done without killing their budgets, or we've closed accounts where they just need to be closed and turn those accounts over to collections to get that done. But we're making substantial headway as a result of those efforts. Shutdown policy has been restored, which was a key thing that we were missing. Software changes that needed to be made have been initiated by staff, and finally we've gotten that under control, and we're making the turning off accounts that need to be turned off when they need to be turned off, and not letting it linger. Transition towards more fixed revenue versus revenue rate structure. I think most of you remember we worked through. One of our big issues is that in a water utility, typically a large portion of the revenue is variable revenue. It means it depends on how much water is used. A very small amount is fixed relative. On the expense side, a very high amount of your expenses are fixed relative to a very small amount of your your expenses that are variable. So they're kind of backwards for financial stability. Our neighbors out in California found this out the hard way. We made an attempt this year to move a little bit more towards fixed revenue to bring that ratio more in line. Very small incremental change. It doesn't impact the big picture in a major way, but it does make us ever so much more financially stable, which is a good thing. Payment assistance program, we talk about that. That's been initiated. We're working through to get the contract implemented so we can start the roundup process and start taking donations from folks that want to contribute to that. The capital reserve investment plan has been initiated, and we've got some news about that today. We're very close to getting a plan back from BB&T to take some money, and we've identified $15 million that we can actually spare up to plug into that new investment plan as soon as BB&T completes their work, hopefully at the end of this week. Formalized budget reviews, we talked about that. Implementation, the last and probably the most important thing financially we've done is we've implemented a software application called OpenGov. And basically what OpenGov does is it's a software application that reaches out into any and all databases that we access, that we plug things in. With all the things we do, certainly we use multiple databases here. It'll allow us to look at the data and bring it into trends and charts and those kind of things. And certainly as part of the strategic business plan, one of the things that's required to measure whether we're effective in all these initiatives and what we're doing in the operations and in the business area is we've got to look at our key performance indicators. That data is combined from cost, actual expenditures, actual consumption quantities, production quantities, any number of things. Customer service has a great deal of information they generate based on the calls we receive and what happens when our customers come in. So there's a lot of data out there that tells us about what's going on in our organization, but unless we have a way to access it easily and provide information in a means that we as staff and you as policymakers can utilize, it's not a lot of value to us. This is going to keep, I think Commissioner Browning was worried about us spending too much time on data collection, but with this tool, I believe the data collection is going to be pretty much a one-time setup as we generate where the KPI numbers data is located. We'll be able to set this stuff up in OpenGov, and eventually the goal is to have supervisors, managers, and the commission access to their own personal dashboards. If you guys want to look at a particular set of KPIs or a particular set of information in a particular way, you want to see the monthly, the annual, or whatever trends, however you like it, we hope to, in the very near future, be checking in with each of the staff initially, and then with the commissioners to provide your own personal dashboards to access data that will tell you about what's going on, allow you to know what we know, and for us to use to make decisions on what we should be doing, make changes and that kind of thing. In summary, I think a lot of good things have happened in 2018. I look for a lot more good things to happen in 2019, but I did want to brag a little bit about these folks who have made some big efforts to make the changes they have made and make the improvements that have been made and lay the groundwork for even more changes going forward. Wasn't really planning on any questions right now. I'll shoot out digital copies of all this stuff and a little bit more detailed summary of some of this, but just wanted to get that across to everyone.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think our staff did do a good job last year, and we look forward to 2019.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a question? I know you said you weren't really
Okay.
questions, but I mean, just as kind of building on some of that, and I could echo that. I think a lot was done in 18, and thank y'all for that work. As we start planning towards some of this budget calendar, are we gonna? There's several things in here about the budget. Are we gonna start planning early this year and start doing the budget thing? When are we gonna start? I guess really
the
talking
budget?
about budgets. I know it's not directly related to this, but it's starting this month. As we do, there's several things in here that were cost savings during 18. Do we have a rough projection at least on what we're going to save from all these cost savings in energy and maintenance?
So, some of them, there are initial cost savings. Now, not all these are what will go in there, but some of these, we've got small pieces of what's been done. And the overall cost savings for some of these things, we don't have enough data to calculate it forward. We're still making the changes for where I told you about the operational stuff that are systemic. All that stuff has to be completed before we can see the savings. So most of it right there, I don't think are going to be accounted for just yet, but I think in the 2020 budget or in the following year's budget, next year when we start this process, we'll be able to look at those numbers and plug them in.
And then the other question was, we got in here transition towards a more fixed revenue rate structure. When are we going to start talking about rate structures and verifying that that is what we want to continue to do year after year?
That'll be part of this process.
A component part of the budgeting process.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Next item is projects update. Mr. Klein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is the monthly project update. And we used to call it capital project update, but I think more appropriately it's project update because there's multiple types of projects on here. The largest being capital projects, which are R&R, capital improvement, and also SPLOST projects. But there's also a table where we show all the unsolicited proposals we're currently working on or even investigating. There's the bullpen for proposed projects, which aren't designated specifically yet. And then at the very end, we put the list of completed projects to kind of show our graduation. There's also attached in your handout should be the map showing the locations. Red dots are ones where construction is not in progress yet. Green dots are where construction is in progress to some extent. I'll hit the high points. The formatting of this has changed just a little bit. It's continuous improvement, we hope, or at least that's what we call it. Added a couple numbers in here down beside the bullpen. Wanted to make sure we kind of understood how much money is left that's not committed yet, uncommitted funds. And we put that appropriately beside the bullpen. That's where the conceptual projects or projects that we're looking into to bring before the board for consideration. So you kind of keep a tab on this report, and it should mimic pretty closely the end of the month financial that John brings as well. So we're trying to keep that in tight coordination. It may not match cent for cent, but thought it was appropriate to include that on this report here. Also, another change from some feedback on the last go-round last month, added the very last column before the status notes on the right-hand side. You'll see a column that's labeled total project anticipated completion. So giving you a when is this project projected at this point to be completed. And hopefully that's helpful in explaining the story. Just a couple projects Mr. Junkin touched on in his report there. The SPLOST 702 project, it's phase 2 and 3 design. The engineering RFP is out, it's being advertised, and we expect proposals to be due February 13th. Coming back, as part of that work, we're doing some preemptive investigation with CCTV work that's underway right now, the actual physical camera work of the sewer lines, making sure we fully understand and have that information available for the design engineer we bring on board. That's for the rehab portion of some gravity sewer mains in the phase 3 section down in the Academy Creek Basin. So
A lot of that work is being done at night, so if you drive through town and don't see it being done, a lot of that work's being done over the overnight hours.
correct, thank you. And that's a 30-day project, so that's going to wrap up here pretty quick. We've got, from operations, system pumping and maintenance, Ray Giuliano, who oversees all the in-house CCTV work. He's actually project manager on this project, so he's in real close communication, working real closely with our vendor, who is Southeast Pipe Survey, a regional, very familiar with them, do a lot of work in the region for that type. Next project, SPLOST project, also touched on earlier, 4003. We had the pre-proposal meeting. It was mandatory. We had 12 firms show up for that, so still a lot of interest in that project. It's a good thing. Some new faces, some familiar faces. We look forward to seeing how proposals come back in on the 23rd. Come up here pretty quick. So we'll see how that shakes out. We've talked a lot about the evaluation process and how that's going to work in previous commission meetings, so we're looking forward to seeing that. We have 2 projects I'd like to mention that we're in cooperation with the City of Brunswick. One of them is Magnolia Water Improvements. City of Brunswick's doing a roadway and drainage improvement project in the same neighborhood, working with those, with the team from the city on that. We do have a design back from their design engineer, EMC. It's under review right now. We're looking at some areas where we can either reduce line sizes, maybe reduce valves that we're calling out, different ways we can try to make that project as efficient as possible, still function as desired. There's some opportunity to do some improvements along the, what's the street? Thank you. Mind blank there. Habersham Street. Do some improvements, maybe potentially include them in there. It's under evaluation right now. L Street is the second project with the city that we're working with, and that project was actually bid by the city. They received one responsive bidder from a contractor. That bid is under review by the city and us as well. And just in full disclosure, it's come north of where the projected budget was. I think on our report we've got $650,000 for the JWC portion. The JWC portion of the bid came in around 900, just under $1 million. So we can definitely talk about. We're evaluating the unit prices, seeing where they came in high, what seems kind of out of line. Unfortunately, we don't have a second bid to compare to, but we're compared to recent work and unit costs that we're familiar with. So we'll have some more info. That's hot off the press this week. We'll have something to come back and share with the board very soon on that. So be aware of that. Friendly Express, that's one of the cooperative projects with the developer for the Friendly Express number 71 at the corner of 303 and 341. That construction is underway. You've probably seen, if you've driven through that area, a lot of pipe fused together, laying up on the ground, and the folks out there putting that pipe in the ground. As with pretty much every project, there's something challenging is going to pop up. Working through a gas main location to get up under there, we had to kind of stop, evaluate, and we're working with DOT and the gas company to evaluate an elevation on an existing gas main to make sure we negotiate around that guy properly.
They're going to be tied Saturday, right?
Correct. So they're going to tie the water in, the section of water that is installed at this point from the interline extension, existing to basically the adjacent to Friendly Express. So that section of water main's in the ground. They're ready to do the tie. They're going to do that on Saturday, working with the church who would be affected by a water outage and then also the customers that are tied in that section and the school, thank you. So coordinating that work right now, it's going to happen Saturday.
After something like that is tied in, I mean, is it gotta be flushed and tested and go through the whole boil water advisory and everything, or is there a way to test that
Correct.
section of pipe, flush it, do the boil before you tie it in line?
There's a couple different ways you can do it. Now that some work can be pre-chlorinated, they call it. You know, that is a technique that can be done. This one here, since we've got the time to do it, and the tie-in should be a very easy tie-in. We're going to tie it in, flush it, chlorinate it, sample, and then the sample should be. We should have the results back before.
The hope is we'll have the results back before church on Sunday.
There's
Mr.
no
Simmons
boil
from
water
Water
advisory.
Distribution's here, and he's got some input. You want
There's
to,
no boil water advisory on that.
where we can isolate it.
Hot swab it, chlorine, put it right back together, shut it down, get a small bowl of water right in that vicinity, and then turn it right back on. School had water back in their church.
There's a short section between the valve and the new line that will lose pressure when they do tie-in, so that short section will have a boil water. The new line up at Friendly won't because there's no active customers on it.
So they were able to get the water in the, thank you, Derek. They were able to get the water in the ground up to the business, point of connection for the business. We didn't want to hold up they've got a pretty, as you can see, drive by, it looks like they're ready to open the doors. Just need to put some potato chips and things up on the shelves and all that and get going. So they are not held up while we negotiate how to get underneath the gas main on 303, but it's still going to happen. Other point on this project is we've already got a potential customer, our first commercial potential customer on the other side. So we are very excited to get this underneath 303 and available for them. So their permit is currently under review at Glynn County right now, that business. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to think of the best way to ask it. The original project estimate budget of 220, and I'm not talking about this project specifically, I'm just making sure I understand the spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
So at one time for this one, for example, we had an original project budget, and then we came in and, you know, we all unanimously agreed with y'all's recommendation that we would change the pipe size, and of course that increased the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So is this 220, is this the original budget or is this the amended budget?
You'll see, I thought that would have been covered in the change order to it. That's the amended, yeah.
So the 220 is the amended, new, originally, latest approved budget essentially.
Right.
Latest approved,
We'll get
yeah.
that fixed for next time because like I said.
That should be the original budget.
Academy Creek number, we're not gonna change that original estimate number, so we'll make sure we get that one changed back.
Yeah.
170 or 180, whatever.
So being on in this particular one, since we're so close to the original project budget, and it sounds like there's a little bit of work left to do at least, and we've already released everything except 0.95% of the budget, does that mean we're intending to go over budget, or we've spent everything basically but 1%?
Yeah, that looks like, because we haven't paid anything out on that project yet. Let me check, that looks like actually a formula issue right there. So we haven't made any pay, or there's been no pay requests come in yet. So we
Okay.
haven't spent any money on that. It's just encumbered, yeah, so, let's see. Well, actually, the encumbered should show should factor into the percent remaining. Yeah, let me,
What then is that difference is the
Well, that's the contract, correct?
That contract is for the 270.
Yeah, so you've encumbered the contract.
yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, correct. So the encumbered is shown in the percent remaining.
Well, all these would be that case, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't all of them be you've encumbered the contract?
Not necessarily.
Not until the contracts
Until
are
it's bid.
approved by the board. Yeah, it becomes encumbered once the board approves the contract. And some projects may have multiple contracts or multiple purchase orders, so.
So just for my
projects.
learning, and so I understand, like 704, for example, Canal Road to Glencoe 12-inch water main loop, we haven't awarded that contract.
That's correct.
And that's why there's 96% left. So anything that's got a
Correct.
high percentage left, none of these we've awarded the contract because they're all North Mainland Sewer Improvements Phase 2, 98% is left.
Correct.
We hadn't awarded that contract.
Correct. Once a
Well,
contract's
not
awarded.
all of these things are necessarily a contract.
Yeah, some of the work, like that 12-inch on Canal, a lot of that work was proposed to be done in-house. So there may not be necessarily a contract there. That would be the purchase of the supplies as we start the project. So, you know, for that particular one, you may see that once that project gets underway, you may see that incrementally go up instead of having a big purchase order hit it at one time. That's just for the in-house stuff.
Cool. Definitely some refinement, I'd say, on the numbers in here, and we'll get those tightened up. So that's Friendly Express. Next one to mention would be Glynn County Village Project. So that's a cooperative project with Glynn County that we teamed up with them. It's down in the village. They're doing some drainage and some roadway improvements. Good opportunity for us while the work's being done to replace some water lines in there. And so work just started literally within the last week or so. If you drive down in the area, you can see some barricades and some street or traffic control measures in place, some dumpsters moving around, things like that. We haven't uncovered any pipes yet. There's been a couple saw cuts, road cuts in preparation for that work. Glynn County project, but we're sticking, right there alongside with them. I know Derek with his crews being waterline and as sensitive as that area is, they're, if not on site, a moment's notice away. We have our construction inspectors tagging along with construction as well. Pretty good updates. I can share this if you're interested. Georgia Water Environmental Services is Glynn County's engineer of record, and also they're the ones doing the construction management of the project. Doing a great job. Weekly meetings with the merchants. They're staying on top of all the issues that may pop. There are going to pop up. There will be issues, I'm sure, with every project. So they're handling that very well. So nothing new to report other than that on that project. So if there's any other projects you'd like to discuss, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Next item is the health insurance workshop. Jimmy Junkin.
Today, I asked Ms.
Katina, Tyndall.
Come in and talk to us about, we met today and looking at the health insurance requirements that are coming up. We're about to go out and procure our health insurance for the coming 12 months, starting in end of March,
March 1st.
March 1st. Okay, and then what we've got to do is we've got a short time frame. We've got a process we've got to achieve between now and then, and there's some conditions going on that we need to talk about, and I'll turn it over to you to kind of talk to them about the things we discussed today.
Okay.
Set them up for where we need to go.
Okay, great. As you all know, I was here in October, and we've had multiple discussions about what you would like to see. One of the challenges we have is we have new commissioners that have just come on board, and yet they have to make such a serious decision right away. Unfortunately, because the group is small, the insurance companies only have to give us a 60-day notice of that renewal. You must have that renewal to then shop it to market. So we have, at best, if everything was done, less than 60 days to ever make a decision on what to do with the health insurance due to the size of the group. For those of you at the city and the county, that wouldn't be the case because you are self-funded, so that's a totally different market. So when we met in October, there were a couple of things that you all said that you wanted to discuss. One was you wanted to look at some options, you wanted to look at some you wanted to have a workshop for one, a pre-workshop. That's why we met today, so we could preliminarily talk about what we should do. We can have 1 or 2 workshops depending on what you feel is necessary before you go to full commission meeting to make a decision. You can create an ad hoc committee to have further detailed discussion about the health insurance. You all have to just decide how it is that you want to administer this process to then make a decision. A couple of things that were discussed in that meeting was we want to look at higher deductibles, we want to look at a base plan and a buy-up, we want to look at adjusting contributions. So what we did with the staff today is we looked at multiple options and we narrowed it down to a few. We're also going back to ask for health savings account, HSA plans, just so we can have that to review as well. And we will narrow that down for your review at our next meeting next week. So at this time, we are just asking you, what would you prefer in regards to an ongoing process in the next couple of weeks? one workshop date that we went ahead and put for your review is Monday, the 28th at 10 a.m. But we're very flexible. We understand some of you, we may have to have a conversation with over the phone while you're in the car on the way to one project over another, or we may have to have small group meetings. It's really up to you, so I turn it back over to you for advisement.
And when do we have to make our final decision?
We are hoping that you can make a final vote decision on the February 7th meeting. But what we don't want to do is inundate you with new information, and that's something that you all asked in October, that it not be full information at the commission meeting, but that separate workshops. I think we did have committees at a time, and now we're looking at more of a workshop opportunity. So we still need to have time to enroll the employees and fulfill the open enrollment obligations through the benefits department.
So did I understand that one of the, I guess, the rate determining steps was for us as a group to decide whether we need a workshop or whether we need just a small group of us to have a workshop? Is that one of the rate determining
Yes.
steps?
Would you like to have a workshop where everyone is invited, or would you like to assign an ad hoc committee to go into this in more detail, people who maybe have some experience in that area? Or if everyone's interested in that, we can do whatever you'd like. We just want to find out what you want so we can set that timeline up as quickly as possible.
Which commissioners would like to be on the ad hoc committee?
I'd be interested in participating.
Sure, I'll do it.
Anybody else interested?
How many do you need?
We got two right
3
now.
would be good. Commissioner Browning isn't here. We could put him on there.
I agree.
Maybe not.
I'll support the committee.
Okay. I think that'll be good, just to have an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Okay.
And that'll be meeting on the 29th?
On the 28th, Monday, the 28th at 10 a.m. Pam, is that acceptable, or does that work for the three of you?
Yes.
It does for me. So, Mr. Chairman, am I understanding that the committee would kind of just vet the issues and then bring back a summary to the full commission of, what we're thinking and kind of a high level, these are the pros and cons?
Yes.
Well, I think we need to have the ad hoc committee meet, come up with our recommendations, present it to the commission, and then they have an opportunity to tell us, go back into session with further guidance.
That's kind of what I was proposing. I might not explain it the way I was thinking it, but that's what I was
Okay.
thinking.
Does that give ample opportunity for questions and thorough discussion to come to a vote on February 7th?
Well, that's what I was wondering, though, should we not have the ad hoc committee before the,
Can we move the ad hoc committee meeting up?
We certainly can. We can meet next week if that works for you all. And I know you were in this meeting when I sent the email. Does Monday work for you all, Monday afternoon?
Monday is,
For just the staff to,
Monday
don't
works
think
good
you
for me.
want
That
20
is,
options.
that's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That does work for me, and I don't know if y'all,
Well, that's out 21st.
this Monday, this coming Monday?
14th.
oh, this Monday, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the Monday before the,
14.
Just for the staff. We're gonna meet with the staff.
sorry, I
and
thought
then
you meant
we
the
can
Monday
meet
before the
thereafter.
executive
Okay.
session.
What's driving the February 7th date?
So the renewal is March 1st.
Oh,
We
March
received the
1st.
renewal, yes, sir, January 1st, and we immediately, as soon as insurance companies opened up, had everything ready to send out to market. It takes a couple of weeks to get answers, and then we thoroughly vet, look at multiple things, and then narrow it down and come back to the staff. They make a recommendation to the commission, and the commission then has to vote. At that time, we have to order materials from the insurance company, get them printed, set up all the employee meetings, give them the information, give them ample time to decide, get that information back, get the 90% back we didn't get when we asked for it the first time, and then submit it all to the insurance company to have ID cards by March 1st.
Can we have that ad hoc meeting sometime the week of the 15th?
Next week? Yes, sir. We sure can.
How many days after you meet with staff do you need before you meet with the
One.
committee?
Okay.
So we could look at Tuesday,
I'm available Tuesday afternoon,
okay?
Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon is out for me. And then Thursday is pretty much out for me, unfortunately. That's when we have our,
So does Tuesday afternoon work for you, Commissioner
Tuesday
Duncan? Yes?
afternoon?
Yes? What time?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Tuesday the 15th.
Does that work for you, y'all?
Not in here, she says.
Space training in here all day on the 15th. The room is not available.
Well, we don't necessarily need this big a room.
They can use another
It's just a
board
view,
room.
okay. And then our staff meeting on Monday afternoon, what time works for you all?
Let's see.
I mean, Monday.
That's fine.
Monday morning, I'm okay. Monday afternoon, 3:30 is about the earliest I can get
That's
work.
fine.
We're meeting Tuesday, right?
Yes, 15th, I think. Will somebody send an invite out, Janice, or will you? I mean, you'll send a formal invite out.
So staff meeting on Monday at 3:30. Mr. Junkin, is that good with you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then we will have the ad hoc committee meeting in another location in the building at 1 o'clock on Tuesday.
Okay.
And then we'll have a presentation at our 24th meeting for the full commission to look at.
That's fine.
And so you're thinking to present on the 24th?
First,
the
to
commission?
have comments, and then we can, that way we can vote on it by the 7th.
That
sense
would
to
give
me.
us 2 weeks
Right.
to consider.
All right, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Okay, the executive director's update?
Yes, sir. It's, just a couple of very brief things. We've got the, City of Rise, prediction forum coming up at Coastal College on January 22nd. Again, I'll remind everybody, 8:30 to 1:30. The Coastal Georgia Regional Water Planning Group is meeting in the Chamber of Commerce. And I don't know who all is invited to that, but I imagine some of you are. If you've been invited, it's because we think you're very critical to what's being done and where we need to be going in the future. That'll be from 12 until 2 with the Chamber of Commerce. On a separate item, but related to something we kind of glossed over in the discussion earlier, we had the company guy from AIT come in to look at the dryer Academy wastewater treatment plant. Looks like a ton of maintenance needs to be done. There's a lot of issues in getting that thing up to a lot of recommendations. Based on the massive number of issues and concerns, I almost really like, we need to get maybe a budgetary number from them on what it would take to do the work that they're programmed out and making recommendations on. So Mr. Burrows is working to get that up for us, and we'll probably incorporate that into the other work we talked about doing at Cabin Creek. Last item, there was interest in the, I think we communicated this through the emails. GMA will be doing the pension talks on the
February 7th.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
What's that last piece? I missed it. I mean, I heard February 7th, but I didn't.
Representatives from GMA as well as their actuarial firm will be here on the first meeting in February.
Oh, at the full commission meeting. Oh,
Yeah, that's that meeting we asked for.
yes, sir.
If any of the commissioners have, I did forward the question on the estimated interest earnings, the 7.5%. I forwarded that to them. If you have any other specific questions that we can forward to them so that they can prepare any materials that they need to for that, if you please forward those to me and I'll forward them on.
Okay. I guess it's time for a chairman's update, and I'm the new chairman, so I guess I need to make an update. Let me say I appreciate the opportunity to serve as chairman of this commission. I think we have a really great staff, and I think we've got a great board of commissioners. Just like in a church, you use the people that have the spiritual gifts and in the way that they most benefit the church, the same way we need to do that with this as a commission. We have some commissioners that are better at other things than other things. So I'm looking forward to working for every commissioner in meeting the needs and hopefully move this commission forward. We have a really good staff, like I said, and I hope that 2019 is going to be a great year. We need to understand that we're the backbone of the community. Without this organization, without our water and sewer system, Glynn County would have a difficult time existing. And we need to work for every resident and every person in Glynn County. And we need to be open for business in every area of Glynn County. And the only way to do that is to be ready to provide good business and good service to everybody. So I want to commend the staff, the ones I've worked with in the past, and I really look forward to working with our two new commissioners. Congratulations, Bob. And I think that hopefully this is going to be a good year. I would like us to talk about maybe scheduling a workshop, a retreat, maybe a mini retreat or something like that, just as a commission. And we don't have to go anyplace. We could do it maybe at Jekyll or someplace here close by, and it could just be a morning retreat or something like that if we wanted to, just so we could, as a commission, just hash out different things and ideas and talk about committee appointments and things like that. And what I'd like to propose is if we could do it, maybe think about doing it the Wednesday before the next meeting. I don't know if y'all would be open for that.
The 22nd in the morning, I have something to do.
It could be that afternoon,
23rd?
22nd or 23rd?
23rd.
I don't, the 20, is it the 23rd?
Yes, sir. Wednesday
Okay.
before.
Okay, I can do it then.
The afternoon of the 23rd.
And I can
Morning.
host that if you need a place, if you need a location, if you want to do it outside of this building. Yeah, it's probably better. Got more parking.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
23rd works well.
23rd. At 1 o'clock?
23rd at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where Charlie's office is? Up on 17, right?
528 Darien Highway.
A really huge, fancy building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just an office.
And I'll get with Jimmy and we can kind of maybe come up with some kind of agenda. If anybody has any suggestions that they want to make sure we cover, if you just give me a call or give Jimmy a call. And I think basically the only other staff member, Jimmy would be the only staff member I think we probably need.
Got details. Thank you.
What's that?
Executive session.
Do we have an executive session? We need an executive
Yes,
session?
we need an executive session.
Do we need to make a motion?
I
to-
move into executive session
Second.
for legal matters with encroachment. Is that okay?
That's fine. I think it probably just needs to be property.
Property, okay.
Property.
Need to vote on that?
I don't believe a vote will be coming out of it.
Hey,
We need to vote to go into
we need to vote to
Oh,
go
yeah,
into
I
it,
already
yes.
made a motion.
Okay.
Mayor's
You seconded it, so you can go.
All in favor?
Aye.
back into session from executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Adjourn.
So Mike, you not coming back?
We should have asked.
Hard working with you.
Plus on the other side of it.